Well, all right. You're back. Day two. This is practice, right? We show up, we do the practice. That's what this is. It's a wild writing practice. We don't finish it and then we're done and no, it's a practice. So welcome back to the practice. Thank you for coming yesterday. For so many of you who could be there, it was really wonderful to write with you. And I'm going to reiterate, go over again what this practice is for anyone who missed it. But it's funny because, I've been teaching this for 20 years, but often I'll be sitting at this table with people who've been doing this work with me for 12 or 15 years. And I'll begin with, okay, now what is it we're trying to do? And the reason that I say that is because we're actually trying to write as poorly as possible, which is the antithesis of the way we were raised, which was to reach for the stars and angle in and do your best. And that kind of energy is not what we're bringing to the wild writing. And so we have to remind ourselves that, no, we're not reaching for the stars. We're actually relaxing. And so when I say, please write as poorly as possible, what I mean is, let's let your belly hang over your jeans. Let's take a deep breath and let's just relax and find our home voice, our regular voice, not our spectacular writing voice, because I just feel like that is what keeps us from that authentic writing that we're looking for. Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to do. I've got a poem over here, but I want to remind you how we're going to do it. I'm going to read the poem and I'm going to read it twice. And as I read it to you, I want you just to relax. In fact, you might even close your eyes because there's so much exciting visual information back there. So close your eyes if you like and listen to me read the poem to you. And as I read the poem, just notice what's arising. You may have a thought that has nothing to do with the poem. It might be like a date you had 2 weeks ago with somebody, or a phone call you need to make, or a conversation that went a little wonky. Like whatever is arising for you, that is perfect. You aren't going to be responding to the poem. You're not going to be, this poem is about coconuts. You don't have to write about coconuts. You can write about anything you want. The poem is really meant to sort of kind of infect you with the cosmic poetry goodness of the poem and turn you around. And from there, I'm going to give you a jump off line, and you're going to take your own material, use that line and sort of right into the piece with that. Okay. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to read it once. I'm going to give you those lines and I'm going to read it again. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pick up your pen and you're going to pick one of those lines or a couple of those lines, and you are going to write as fast as you can for 15 minutes, pen never leaving the page. And the reason why we're doing that is we're trying to get away from the critical voice, the one that so badly wants us to do things well, but is also too cumbersome and too yakety yak and too perfectionist. And we want to throw all that to the curb. We want to relax. We want to pick a line. We want to write as fast as we can, pen never leaving the page. When you come to an end of a thought, go back to that jump off line and use it again. You might use those jump off lines 4 or 5 times in a piece. Think of them as like shovels to dig into, okay? Although many times I leave those lines in, like I love returning to the jump off line, okay? So you're going to write as fast as you can, pen never leaving the page for 15 minutes. And that's what we're going to do today, okay? The thing about wild writing that I think is part of its goodness is that we're learning to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That means that when we're writing, we may not love it all the time. The first 5 minutes might be just clunkety clunk. You might be clunkety clunk in minute 10, but we keep going for the whole 15 minutes. And the reason is just because at minute 11, you might finally say something that's interesting to you. You might finally get to the place you've been trying to get at for the first 11 minutes. But if you didn't sit there for 11 minutes and pay the piper and stick with it, you wouldn't have gotten to, oh, this is what I'm trying to tell you. This is actually what's important to me. And so, in all creative practices, if every time I got up, every time I felt uncomfortable or I didn't like my work or it wasn't happening for me, I would never get anything done. And so we're training ourselves in 15-minute increments to relax, to just write as fast as we can and say yes to what's coming. And the say yes to what's coming is so important. I spoke about that yesterday, because as things come, as we're writing and we hear things coming, the critical mind wants to say, don't do that. No, not that story. You're always telling that, or that's the wrong word. Or when we stop and we search for a better word, or we say, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. We break the rhythm of what we're trying to do, which is to listen to the creative unconscious. Okay, that's what it said. That's the word. And we want to use everything. We want to say yes to what's coming. If we say no to it and we say, no, that's stupid, I want to use something like it. I know for myself, my writing just tanks. And so just get used to just writing whatever is coming and trusting it, just trusting it. Okay. All right. Are you ready? All right. Today, we're just going to do one piece. I'm going to read it to you twice. I'm going to give you those lines, and then you're going to take off and do the practice by yourself. Okay? It's going to be your time, 15 minutes, and then I'll see you again tomorrow live. All right? This is one of my favorites. It's Coconut by Paul Hostovsky. Such a wonderful, wonderful poem. Okay? So relax. Let your belly hang over your jeans. Coconut. Bear with me. I want to tell you something about happiness. It's hard to get at, but the thing is, I wasn't looking. I was looking somewhere else when my son found it in the fruit section and came running, holding it out in his small hands, asking me what it was and could we keep it, and only cost 99 cents, and hairy and brown and hard as a rock, and something swishing around inside of it, and what on earth and where on earth. And this was happiness, this little ball of interest beating inside his chest, this interestedness beaming out from his face, pleading happiness. And because I wasn't happy, I said to put it back, because I didn't want it, because we didn't need it. And because he was happy, he started to cry right there in aisle 5. So when we got home, we put it in the middle of the kitchen table and sat on either side of it and began to consider how to get inside of it. Coconut. Couple of lines. I'm going to read it again. Bear with me. I want to tell you something about marriage. Bear with me. I want to tell you something about getting older. Bear with me. I want to tell you something about rain. Bear with me. I want to tell you something about my dream last night. Like really whatever is arising for you, bear with me. I want to tell you something about, and you can return to that line over and over. I also like to pull lines that aren't necessarily in the piece. So a great line that you might use is a few things I might want to write about. A few things I might want to write about. And you can even number it. Number 1, number 2. It's just a really nice way to get whatever's inside you, have it come up. It doesn't matter if it's not attached to the poem. The poem just kind of, infects us with something really creative and wonderful. So that's a line 2. A few things I might want to tell you, I'll write about. Or this line, what if I were to tell you, what if I were to tell you? All right, let me read it to you one more time. Listen up. Such a good poem. Coconut by Paul Hostovsky. Bear with me. I want to tell you something about happiness. It's hard to get at, but the thing is, I wasn't looking. I was looking someplace else when my son found it in the fruit section and came running, holding it out in his small hands, asking me what it was and could we keep it, and only cost 99 cents, hairy and brown and hard as a rock, and something swishing around inside, and what on earth and where on earth. And this was happiness, this little ball of interest beating inside his chest, this interestedness beaming out from his face, pleading happiness. And because I wasn't happy, I said to put it back, because I didn't want it and we didn't need it. And because he was happy, he started to cry right there in aisle 5. And so when we got home, we put it in the middle of the kitchen table and sat on either side of it and began to consider how to get inside of it. Here are your lines. Bear with me. I want to tell you something about, and you can just return to that. Or a few things I might want to write about. Or what if I were to tell you, you can use those lines, okay? Set your timer for 15 minutes. I hope you're using a pen and a paper. Please relax, write as poorly as possible. Just tell us what you know. 15 minutes, don't stop, okay? You got this. I'll see you tomorrow.